In the beginning, the world was dark. Then God said, "Let there be light." Those words changed the existence of the world thousands of years ago. 75 years ago, those words rang true again as the electric cooperatives across our great nation began lighting the homes of rural farmers and their families. And once again, the words, "Let there be light," brought about another change in our lives, a change that continues to change the way we live in rural Lincoln County. This is our story, the story of the 1935 rural electrification of Lincoln County and how it changed our lives forever. Traveling a country road at dusk in the early 1940s, a land buyer for the Tennessee Valley Authority came upon the farmer of a newly electrified farm. Sitting on a little knoll overlooking his farm, he gazed down at his home, barn, and smokehouse ablaze with light. The TVA man could not help but notice the look of special wonder in the farmer's face, enthralled at the scene below. About a week later, the TVA man attended the church to which this farmer belonged. During the service, the farmer got up to express his spiritual condition, giving witness thusly.
Brothers and sisters, I want to tell you this. The greatest thing on earth is to have the love of God in your heart, and the next greatest thing is to have electricity in your house.
The next greatest thing, what a reputation to live up to. 2010 marks our 75th anniversary of rural electrification here in Lincoln County. It's also Lincoln County's 200th anniversary, our bicentennial. So we're celebrating. We're celebrating our history and our progress here at Fayetteville Public Utilities and how the lives of thousands have been changed in our small rural communities as their homes and farms were electrified in the 1930s and 40s. Some of you were around back then and can remember when you first received electricity to your homes and farms. But many of us weren't there to witness this magical time that changed our lives forever. Join us for a glimpse of our past to see what rural everyday living was like in Lincoln County. Envision how things used to be before electricity.
I had seen firsthand the grim drudgery and grind which had been the common lot of 8 generations of American farmers. I had seen the tallow candle in my own home, followed by the coal oil lamp. I knew what it was to take care of the farm chores by flickering undependable light of the lantern in the mud and cold rains of the fall and in the snow and icy winds of winter. I had seen the cities gradually acquire a night that was light as the day. I could close my eyes and recall the innumerable scenes of the harvest and the unending, punishing tasks performed by hundreds of thousands of men and women, growing old prematurely, dying before their time, conscious of the great gap between their lives and the lives of those whom by accident of birth or choice placed them in the towns and cities.
Men spoke of their chains of imprisoning drudgery and darkness. They would say, "Go into the country and you will find numberless classes of men with poor health, crushed energies, ruined constitutions, and stunted souls, and women the slaves of habits of excess labor." It was not honorable. It was not a trait of true nobility to bring up children to this thankless, unrequited labor. Yet the rural people and their organizations that sought justice in their land remained strangely tranquil, hopeful. Because there was no electricity, a farmer could not use an electric pump. He was forced not only to milk, but to water his cows by hand, a chore that in dry weather meant hauling up endless buckets of water from a deep well. Because he could not use an electric auger, he had to feed his livestock by hand, pitchforking heavy loads of hay up into the loft of his barn, and then stomping on it to soften it enough so the cows could eat it. He had to prepare the feed by hand because he could not use an electric grinder. He would get the kernels for his mules and horses by sticking ears of corn, hundreds of ears of corn, one by one into a corn sheller and cranking it for hours. Because he could not use electric motors, he had to unload cottonseed by hand and then shovel it into the barn by hand. To saw wood by hand, by swinging an axe or riding one end of a rip saw. Because there was never enough daylight for all the jobs that had to be done, the farmer usually finished after sunset, ending the day as he had begun it, stumbling around the barn, milking the cows in the dark as farmers had done centuries before.
Well, it did not only affect your lights, it affected your refrigeration, your ironing, your heating, and everything. And you heated with fireplaces that used wood. And you had a big old cook stove that had a reservoir on the end of it that was heated your water. Then that was your cooking. And refrigeration, a lot of them had spring houses, but we didn't. We took the milk was put in gallon buckets, and the spring was too far from the house. Spring was the water came out of a cave, and that water was always cold. But we took the bucket and set it down in the creek, which ran right back of the house, and put a rock on top of that to hold it down in the water.
The farmer had to milk his cows by hand, arising at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning to do so. Milking was done by the dim light of kerosene lanterns, or it was done in the dark, and there was a constant danger of fire with kerosene lamps, and even a spark could burn down a hay-filled barn and destroy the farmer's last chance of holding on to his place. For this reason, many farmers were afraid to use a lantern in the barn.
Well, I was 6 years old when my mother and daddy got electricity. And I lived at Coldwater, and we milked cows for years. And then when we were able to get electric milking machine, oh boy, we thought we had really gone to town.
Without electricity, there could be no refrigerator. The milk was kept on ice. The ice was expensive, and farmers had to lug it from town at enormous cost and time. At times, even the ice didn't help keep the milk cool enough. In keeping check on the milk's temperature, the farmer frequently checked it with a thermometer. If it read above 50 degrees, he knew that his hours of work in the barn, in the dark, had been for nothing, as the milk was too warm to sell.
Hauling wood inside for the stove, carrying water to the home, and doing the laundry, these were perhaps a farm wife's hardest chores. The wood stoves were dirty and hot. They hated the wood stoves because they could not be left unattended. Without any way to regulate the heat and keep the temperature steady, a woman would have to keep a constant watch on the fire, thrusting logs and corn cobs into the firebox as needed. Some were lucky enough to have an old hand pump to gather water, or a well from which they could draw water for the home. We also had to heat our own water for bathing, which usually took place once a week in an old wash tub big enough to sit in. Sometimes we simply bathed in a nearby creek on hot summer days. Washing and ironing was not easy. Everything was done by hand. Most families had a certain day of the week that they washed clothes. Some washed clothes in a nearby creek by beating them against the rocks, while others used a wash tub full of warm water, a scrub board, and lye soap to clean their clothes. Then the back-breaking task of ironing began. Wash day was usually Monday. Tuesdays were for ironing. Most of us don't know why an iron is called an iron, but if you lived in the 1930s, an iron was an iron. Irons were heated on a wood stove and used to press the clothes until they became cool. Most farm wives used 3 to 4 irons and rotated them on a wood-burning stove to keep one hot and waiting for the next garment.
We were on lamps, no electricity. We were heating water in a black wash pot washing on a rubboard. Oh, we were ironing with a gas iron. And when we had a fireplace, we heated with wood.
We had this black woman who did our washing for us with an old scrub board, and he did the water in a big black pot out in the backyard, and her family lived on the place. Her husband farmed with my daddy and brothers.
Although the city of Fayetteville had electric power as early as 1888, others in our community wanted the benefits that electricity could provide. What history we have been able to find dating back to the 1880s and early 1900s is a story written about the Fayetteville Electric Light and Power Company. The original power company building was located on the south side of the Fayetteville Square, but it later moved to the north side as its operations grew. The first power generator in Fayetteville was a Fort Wayne Jenny 32 arc light machine. After more upgrades were made in years following, the small power company notes having installed a 150 horsepower coreless engine and a 150 horsepower boiler. Early board of directors of the Fayetteville Electric Light and Power Company were H.K. Bryson, president, Will Smith, vice president, W.A. Myers, treasurer, and F.W. Carter, secretary. Mr. W.D. Medeiros was general manager of the company, and when he retired in 1903, Walter Bunn became manager. Mr. Bunn had been with Fayetteville Electric Light and Power Company for 12 years when he became manager. He began work there as a coal roller at a wage of 25 cents per day.
Let's see, my father died in 1925, and we had to move to town so my mother could get a job. And the refrigeration at that time was ice boxes. The ice man would come every morning, or every 2 or 3 mornings, and leave you a big chunk of ice. And he would come in the back door, put the ice in the refrigerator, and you had ice picks that you would pick it off, chunk off, for your tea and stuff like that.
Times were tough, and somewhere the word tough really doesn't encompass what it was truly like. And if things weren't tough enough as the years passed, then came this thing called the Great Depression. Depression swept across all of America with devastating force in the early 1930s. Rural America had known and suffered its effects, the wrenching heartbreak and dislocation for nearly a decade. The droughts, poor harvests, and low farm prices of the 1920s had made the countryside a land of despair. The drought, dust storms, failed crops, foreclosed mortgages, and finally banks closing their doors to stop people from withdrawing currency and gold. It all took a toll on the rural farmer.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance.
And advance he did. On May 18, 1933, just 69 days after becoming President of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt signed the Tennessee Valley Authority Act. In addition to electric power development, TVA entered into the wide fields of flood control, soil conservation, reforestation, elimination from agricultural use of marginal lands, and distribution and diversification of industry. The TVA Act was referred to as the most enduring achievement of the first 100 days that Roosevelt spent in office. It provided for development for the Tennessee River Basin, a desperately poor rural region of washed out and worn out soils and souls. Its dams and reservoirs, among other things, controlled floods, provided navigation, and of course, electric power. The act provided for the sale of power to be given to states, counties, municipalities, and cooperative organizations of citizens and farmers, not doing business for profit, but primarily for the purpose of supplying electricity to its own citizens and members. Rural electrification was a tall order to fill. The TVA Act began the process, but to make electricity available to every farm across the nation, a larger movement was necessary. It was on May 11, 1935, that Roosevelt signed an executive order which established the Rural Electrification Administration. The REA was entrusted with electrifying over 5 million farms nationwide. At this time, only 10.9% of all farms had what was known as central station service. These farms were the most affluent, or they were located near towns. Funding for the construction of rural electricity had been secured by Roosevelt at $100 million as part of a $5 billion public works bill. Loan applications poured in by the hundreds. They came from farm organizations and cooperatives. One of those loan requests came from Lincoln County, Tennessee.
It was the little hand of a 10-year-old girl that threw the switch at the TVA substation in Ardmore in 1935 that sent electric current flowing through 46 miles of electric line across Lincoln County countrysides. This little girl was Mary Sloan, the daughter of the late Lawrence Sloan, who was one of the original sponsors of Lincoln County electrification. Mary Sloan Ernest is now 85 years old and resides in Mississippi, but she still vividly remembers the day that electricity changed the lives of Lincoln County residents.
My father was killed in an accident at the train station at Ardmore on March 13, 1935, when the creosoted poles being shipped in for stringing the lines to carry the TVA power fell from the railroad car and fell over my father, and I'm told that he saw that this was about to happen and stumbled. He was an extremely active citizen in Lincoln County. He was real active in the getting TVA in Lincoln County. I believe he was the chairman of the committee to get the rural electrification for Lincoln County. A big celebration was planned to mark the coming of TVA to Lincoln County, and I was asked to participate in this big event by turning on the lights. And this was to honor my father, who had lost his life while working to bring the power to our area.
And TVA came through Skinnem in 1935 up the Ardmore Highway to Fayetteville.
The very year I married, my mother and them got electricity. So we all had our wringer-type washing machines and our electric stoves and no hot water at that point, but we were so grateful.
Well, when I was a youngster, I can remember one cold day. I guess I was probably about 7, 8 years old, and we lived out in the country near Fairview, and crew came in and started digging the rock hole with bars and hole diggers, and a few months later we got electricity. I was probably, I don't know, I guess I was in the 2nd grade. Came home one day from school and turned the switch on, and hey, we had power. So I remember the good part of that first thing we got was a refrigerator, and my grandmother used to make homemade ice cream in the refrigerator. But I always have something that afternoon.
It was a great thing, but still, everybody got by without it. Everybody was in the same boat.
Then, when I married and we got the electricity, well, we got all the new appliances. We were the first to have electric stove here in town. A lot of people still didn't have one. But then we just graduated from one thing to another.
You know, electrification in Lincoln County and bringing electricity into the rural homes made such a difference because people of Taft and Molina, Mimosa and Flintville, Elora, Boones Hill, they would look at Fayetteville and see the lights on in Fayetteville and envy those people who had that. Electrification meant so much. It meant lights so that you didn't have to go to bed so early and you could read and study later. Radios came along, but refrigerators and vacuum cleaners and all the appliances that we take for granted today, and many of them that we never thought of, were so cherished and so desired by the people. And it brought industry. That was the key. Two things that the TVA did for the Tennessee Valley. One was flood control, which it would wash away, the farmlands would wash away every spring. But it also brought industry. Again, we could attract industries to Lincoln County and to the TVA area because of the electrification.
During the time that electricity was spreading across Lincoln County, local residents and community leaders worked together to form the Lincoln County Electric Membership Corporation. This company was established as an electric cooperative, where customers weren't only customers, they were also members of that cooperative.
Okay, I started here November the 3rd, 1947. We were on the square next to Parks Jewelry. However, Parks just had half of that store then. I think there was Mr. Gant that had the side that was next to us. And there was Miss Beulah. Everybody should know Miss Beulah Barrett. There was Miss Beulah, Stash Hopkins, Ross Kimes was in and out nearly all the time, and me. That was the office. Then there was Paul Campbell, Carl DeLapp, and I think Henry Smith was a meter reader. And I know there were others, but I can't recall all of them. And all of us were crowded in one little office. And I was the bookkeeper. I was hired as bookkeeper. Later through the years, they changed it to accountant. I guess it sounded a little bigger, I don't know. And that's what I was doing when I retired. However, in those early years, we helped each other. Now, Miss Beulah would go to lunch, and she would leave it in charge of somebody. I think she always locked her money up, I'm not for sure. But anyway, you helped out, and we enjoyed it. It was a good almost 33 years, like 3 months being 33 years, and I enjoyed it.
Each year, the Lincoln County Electric Membership Corporation held an annual meeting where members elected the co-op's board of directors. Annual meeting was also a time to give updates on electric construction to our small communities here and to inform members about TVA's advancements across the valley. Many came to annual meeting just to see the latest in electric appliances for the home and electric motors and machinery for their farming operations.
The annual meetings each year, see, the directors was elected by the membership, and they would have different districts that they ran in. And they would have to vote, and at the annual meeting, that's when they would take the election and vote the new directors in. The way we promoted electricity is furnishing appliances to all the high school home economics departments. Each 2 years, we would change out the refrigerators and the stoves and give them a new model. But by doing this, we was hoping to get the students used to using electricity to cook and to do their homework, their house chores on. We also had a demonstration kitchen off of the lobby, and we had all these appliances, the refrigerator, the stoves, the washers and dryers. And at the annual meeting, we was always give away prizes to get people to come. And most of the time, it would be a refrigerator and small electric appliances.
Soon, folks were enjoying the benefits of electric refrigeration, cooking, heating, and cooling. They also experienced the time savings of electric hay lifts, grain dryers, and incubators. Electric motors sped many chores for the farmer, so he actually became more productive.
The other areas of the nation envied us in 1934, 35, and 36, and even today there's a great envy for the great experiment of TVA that has been so successful. And it hadn't been easy. It's taken tenacity, and it's taken a lot of good leadership that has come from the Tennessee Valley to make it what it is today.
For many years, 2 electric systems operated independently in our area. One brought power to city residents, the other to the county residents.
When Fayetteville Electric System and Lincoln County Electric Membership Cooperatives were merged in 1963, it was done by a private act of the state legislature, and it had to be done by the governing bodies of both Lincoln County and the city of Fayetteville. At that time, it was during the tenure of my father as county judge that the private act that formed Fayetteville Electric System and what is today Fayetteville Public Utilities was passed by the legislature, and FPU came into existence. There were some seers who drew that charter and passed that private act, put it together, because even in 1963 they had the foresight to see that at some time there would be a need for a combined utility. And so that private act made it possible for not just an electric system, but a combined utilities, which we have today, of electric, water, water and sewer, gas, telecommunications, internet, and who knows what the future will bring for FPU.
In 1963, they started talking about the merger of the Fayetteville Electric System and the Lincoln County Electric Membership Co-op. At that time, the co-op could only own lines that was outside the city limits. In 1963, the city limits only went to the River Bridge. And we had built Radio City, and the Fayetteville incorporated Radio City, and we had to do a sale of Radio City to the Fayetteville Electric System. L.B. Vessel and I inventoried the Huntsville Highway, and we were getting ready to sell that plant to the city. And the idea came up of having one electric system in Lincoln County, because the city was expanding their city limits and taking in all our big consumers. And that's when the co-op and the electric system got together and decided on a merger. Now, to do that, we had to have permission of all the membership. And we had to hold an annual meeting and have all the memberships to vote on the consolidation.
Combining resources and responsibilities created a stronger, more capable electric utility for our city and county. For the next 37 years, Fayetteville Electric System provided power to all who lived and worked in the Fayetteville and Lincoln County area.
The average bill with the Fayetteville Electric System was 75 cents. That wasn't including the kilowatts. You paid 75 cents, and then it was 1 cent per kilowatt after 75 cents.
At the time I started, the Fayetteville Electric System had one bucket truck, and they had it 2 years, and it was the only one around here. I mean, it was something new, and we had ladder trucks that. Even after I started, they bought a new ladder truck that worked hydraulic, I think, raised up and down, and we had to work all of our street lights and everything off of that ladder truck.
Our office was across the street from the post office, which is now Putman and Hancock's building. The city water was on one side, and the city electric was on the other side. So we both worked in the same office building.
When I started to work, we had a number of meters like this. This is only 120 volts. It's only good for 10 amps, and you could probably use 10 or 11 100-watt light bulbs. That's all that this meter would be capable of metering. This is only a 120 volts. So we started a meter change-out program, And we had a few of these. In fact, Mr. McCown said that they had one on his house when he was a very small boy. They went from this meter next to this meter. Now this meter is a socket meter where you had a socket and you just put it in the socket. This meter will weigh about 7 or 8 pounds. Now in this meter, take a good look at this meter. Okay, you see this, in this meter you would see this little wheel turning. And as this wheel turned, it would register the kilowatt hours that you were using. Also, this meter that you just saw had jewels in it. There was a little jewel here, and there was another jewel, and in between those two jewels was a ball bearing. So they improved on that, and they went to a magnetic system. You see, you can take it apart like this, and this disc will hold with a magnet. And see, it holds like this and turns, so there is no wear and tear to the meter. So it is pretty well maintenance free. And then from that, they went to this meter that they are using today. This meter here would probably weigh less than a pound, maybe a half a pound. It's just real light, real flexible. So this meter is 240 volts. It's 200 amp. I might say that a substation is more or less like your switch box. In your switch box, you got 200 amps, and then you go down to 50 amps, 30 amps, or 20 amp fuses. Well, in your substation, it's the same way. It's a domino effect that you start out with a high amperage and go down. So we purchased TPA substations, and we saw a need that we needed a building and personnel to maintain, to buy equipment, and so that's how we got involved in the maintenance building, substation building. And from our breakers in our substations, at one time they were oil filled. You had to have a certain type of oil. In fact, we would put oil, we had an instrument that we could check oil, and you had a space of about 1/8 of an inch, and you could put 35,000 volts on that before it would break down. So when you checked the oil, if the oil was defective, you either had to filter it or you had to put new oil in. So we went from oil to vacuum, and I'm thankful that we did that because Mr. Pitts, he and I was at the substation one day, and we had a breaker to blow up. I would probably been burned maybe to death if it had been an oil instead of vacuum. Thank goodness that it was a vacuum breaker. So we went from that. I would say that the Fayetteville electric system have always been aggressive. I believe that we had one of the first new J4 electric meters in the state of Tennessee, and then we were the first ones to use the vacuum breakers, which is most all breakers today are vacuum breakers.
I saw when I first came to work, Park City Station had just been finished, and we went to work on Flintville next. And as soon as we got through with Flintville Station, we moved to Blanche and built that station. So power sources in each end of the county got a little better as time went on, and then we rebuilt Brogan. I've been fortunate enough to work on Brogan Station 3 different times. Just each time we'd improve the service, and I guess, of course, in 1980 we started 82 or 3, we started the big work plan, which ultimately wound up with Hamilton Substation serving half the county, and that relieved us of a lot of the stress that was on it. So, and that's about the way the grid system worked, and TVA took advantage of us building Hamilton, and when we installed what we call the Mackburg station, which is actually across the county line in Giles County, but TVA made some good changes there so they could drop the power right into the top of the station and come on out. They changed the design of the line. It didn't run like it used to. But that was good enhanced power down there.
On the job training, we just started climbing poles. And from there, we just kept climbing poles for years. And of course, all the time we were learning what to touch and what not to touch, and get the job done.
Oh, that was on the job training. I never did go to any school on it. Of course, we'd go to Murfreesboro, places like that. They'd have seminars on it and stuff like that. But most of it was on the job training. I know Clyde Smith said that the bucket truck we had was 47 feet long, and that was as high as we could go. And we had a light that we had to put a bulb in, and I put the bucket. I hadn't been working long. I positioned the bucket, and I climbed out of the bucket up on top of the bucket and put my belt around the pole and stood on the top of the bucket and put that bulb in. Clyde Smith said he looked younger and said, well, one thing for sure, he's not scared of heights.
I can remember one day, Clyde Williams and I we were working in the old Pittman bucket. We had it set up out at the ballpark out on just where Winchester and Bypass takes off. We was moving pole for the state, I think, and Clyde was operating the truck, and we were up as far as it'd go. We had to get positioned where, and I don't know, I was boring a hole by hand. Tall pole, I think it's 50 or 55 foot. I told Clyde, I said, get me up there where I can bore it. And I was standing there using that auger, and in a few minutes, it was out of reach almost. I said, Clyde, I told you put me up there where I could bore this hole. So he moved me up there again. He said, I can't go any further. We're out as far as we'll go. A few minutes, it was out of reach again. I turned around and looked. He said, we're falling. I said, yep, I believe we are. So he said, well, let's see. Let me see if I can turn around. I said, no, that's going to put our bucket hitting the ground first. And we started going over slowly. And this whole process took I guess it took about 2 minutes, but it seemed like it was longer than that. We had time to do a lot of thinking. We got down about halfway of the boom breaking over, and I could see the outrigger leaving on the high side. I could see it leaving the ground. I said, Clyde, I believe I'll jump. He said, I don't know. I don't believe I'll jump. So we went over, and I said, and after it broke over, boy, we slapped the ground pretty hard. Neither one of us was hurt, but it gave us a good jar. so that was one experience.
Yeah, usually when you started out working in a line crew, if you showed an interest in being a lineman, when they had time, they'd let you borrow somebody else's hooks and belt. You try to get up a pole best you could. They'd show you, teach you a little bit, but we didn't have an apprentice program back then. It was like Jimmy said, it was hands-on. And they just let you climb service poles and stuff that you could had a danger of falling, but you didn't have a danger of getting electrocuted or anything. But back then it was supposed to be a 4-year apprenticeship, but most of us went through it in 2 years because they needed linemen. So plus 2 years, you were ready to go anyway.
Yeah, I guess I was about 21 when I went to work here, 1964, and fortunate enough to work 33 and a half years. Started out here as a groundman, then advanced to a lineman, and back in those days, bucket truck was something that I got to see come in the afternoon and leave in the morning, but I didn't get to ride in it. I guess it was probably about 10 years later before we got 2 bucket trucks, and then it wasn't too great a deal then, because that was always hard work. Didn't realize how much hard work it was until then. So,
you know, we had a lot of small little one-night things, but major ice storms we had was in 1994 and 1998, and they both lasted about 8 days. And the first one, I think it's the first one, we started up about Teal Hollow up toward Kelso, and we were trying to get the wire back up, but the more we worked, the worse it got, and the limbs would start popping and cracking, and if it was close, you better run, but you didn't know which way to run, so we finally had to just come into town, do something else and let it settle down, because treetops were falling, trees were falling in the road, and it was just a big mess.
I think that '94 ice storm was the worst day I've had. I sat up there well, at home that night when I first came out, I could hear limbs breaking, just sound like a war going on, and came on in the office and started getting some folks in to help out answering the phone, and we started just losing one line right after another. And by 6 o'clock the next night, I think we'd lost half our system. It was bad. It was an 8-day storm. Took us 8 days to get back what we had lost. Some places we just had to get a bulldozer, move in and totally rebuild our lines. I didn't like that one then. I don't want to see another one of those. Early days, we had to stay close to the phone. We didn't have pagers or walkie-talkies to carry with us, so if you was on call or next in line, you had to be within hearing distance of the telephone. If not, next day Paul Campbell would have a good little talk with you. So, I don't know, I guess I'm fortunate enough after advancing into management, I got to see a lot of things change and got to be a part of some things that are still being used here today. I know the most significant thing that I got to work on was the SCADA system, supervisory control system, and it just amazed us that we could sit at the counter up there and see the lights light up on the map board that when blanks would go out. In the early days, it'd be, I don't know, it'd take 30, 45 minutes before we'd find out where our problem was when we had a substation outage. And the supervisory control system just, it just enhanced that, made a world of difference in how we ran our cases of trouble. And to be able to sit there at the counter and test a breaker, it was just, it really is just fantastic. So.
And being a lineman's wife has been a great experience for me. I never knew there was such roads as Bug Tussle Holler, Poor Grab, Booger Holler, Lee's Creek, and the list goes on that I never knew about until I got into this with Mike. But it's been a great experience. I remember one night, it was stormy, Mike had to go out, and some man called and he said, I don't have any electricity. And I said, well, Mike's headed that way. It wasn't 10 minutes till the same man came by and he said he didn't even stop by my house. I've been watching for him. And I said, well, He's probably had to find the transformer up that way, and it wasn't 15 minutes till the man called, and he said he's gone back down the road, didn't even stop at my house. So I said, well, you'll finally get your electricity on. So it wasn't another 10 minutes till the man called back, and he said, I can't even flag him down.
You run into a lot of things now working as a lineman. I guess one night it was coming a bad lightning storm, and I think Charlie Moran and I were out. We were out close to Jim Kidd's, where Mr. Jim Kidd lives, on that close to the rock crusher out there, and we had a line fuse that was open, and it was pouring down rain, lightning everywhere, and I was getting ready to climb a pole, and I had, of course, I had my rubber gloves on. I had one foot on the pole. Lightning struck the line. It came to the lightning arresters there at the pole, and I could actually feel the charge coming down the pole, hit me. Of course, I had one foot on the ground. Felt like a wet blanket hitting me hard, and I wound up back in the road on top of Charlie. Hey, Charlie said, are you hurt? I said, I don't know, but I'm scared to death. So it took me a few minutes to get my breath, and I think it scared him as bad as it did me. So Paul Campbell was hollering for us to get the line fixed. He was hollering on the radio to get the line fixed, and we were sitting up in the truck, and Charlie answered him and told him we wasn't getting out again until it quit lightning. So
the first manager of the Lincoln County Electric Membership Corporation was Kenneth Metcalf. He was followed by D.M. Sanders, Floyd Nelson, Gene Laughlin, Walter Shellick, Wayne Landreth, and now Britt Dye.
Mr. Floyd Nelson, he set the groundwork for it to grow. And so when we went on and from the system with what he had started, with our other managers coming in, the system did grow.
Over the years, technology and power generation and distribution has changed. So has changed Fayetteville Electric System. Thanks to visionary leadership and dedicated employees, this company, in many ways, has led the electric industry in several areas.
And we had to start building substation. And so we began to think, going out hiring contractors. And so he said, let me do some in-house work. So he went, got Mr. Britt Dye and all of them, they got together, started building substation. They built one out here on Huntsville Highway behind Old Gin, and one down in Giles County, and there's several substations. And Mr. Britt Dye at that time was somewhat leading them, and Mr. Britt Dye played a great part in all of these substations. And so one day I told Britt, I said, Britt, you know, someday you're gonna be the manager of this system. He said, oh no, Willie, you know, I can't do that. I said, yes, you can. And you just continue on.
CEO and General Manager Britt Dye, a 30-year veteran of the utility business, tells of some of these changes.
When I began working for the Fayetteville Electric System back in 1977, I came on as a yard keeper, substation keeper, as of maintenance of mowing grass, checking the fences, painting the chain link fences, and those kinds of things, just wanting to get my foot in the door to be able to come to work for and have a full-time job for the Fayetteville Electric System. And also, when I came to work for the electric system in 1977, we had one source that fed in to Lincoln County, and that was at the Kelso substation, what was called the Fayetteville Primary. And if we lost that substation, and whether it was related to a FES problem or if it was a TVA problem, we lost the entire county except for Petersburg, because Petersburg was fed out of Belfast at that time. Now we have 3 delivery points up to this past year. Now we got 4 delivery points at 161 kV compared to one back several years ago. So we got system redundancy. We can move loads from station to station, which has helped us tremendously on swapping and moving and power outages and those type things. So we have really come a long ways from where we were back 20 or 30 years ago.
In 2001, Fayetteville Electric System opened new doors to the telecommunications industry as it became the very first power system in Tennessee to offer cable TV and high-speed internet services.
And another change that took time to get done was when we changed the legislation in on the telecom of going into the business to offer cable and internet services here locally. And with that, we were able to also, up to date, we got almost right at 6 or 7 substations tied in on our fiber system, and doing other things with our cable and internet service out throughout the county that we're offering those services to.
In 2002, it again chartered a new course in the utility industry as the electric system consolidated services with the Fayetteville gas system and the Fayetteville water and sewer system. This utility consolidation created Fayetteville Public Utilities.
Consolidation has been good for the community, it's good for the ratepayers, a one-stop shop has helped out the customers, and saved money overall of what we've done to try to make it a more streamlined process for the customer. In the next 20 years, looking at the business from the electric side of somewhat what we can be expecting is going to be renewables. Renewables being, whether it be solar, it be wind, methane gas. I'm sure there's going to be other options that's going to be coming available as technology changes in the future. And we're trying to be prepared for that. Very, very expensive and changing to renewables, but the guidelines and all that's coming down from legislation and the government is going to be a big change for us all to have to make to be prepared for the future. To talk a little bit about our employees at FPU and on the electric side, going back 75 years up to the time that I came to work, the older generation that started this built a great foundation for us to keep improving on the processes of the new technologies that we're moving today. Everybody that's been involved on the electric side, I can say from the time that I got here, there has always been a vision about where we needed to be, the direction we needed to go, but also at the same time trying to keep the rates low and affordable. And that's what we're still working on today. And with those employees in the past, up with the employees that we have today, the best word I can say are great, dedicated, dependable employees that they'll do whatever they have to do for the customer and whatever they need to do as long as it is safe for FPU to provide the customers with the best service.
As we celebrate 75 years of rural electrification in Lincoln County and across the state, we hope that you'll think of Fayetteville Public Utilities in a new light. The drive and dedication of past and present employees and community leaders lives on as we work together to bring you the best in utility services and add value to doing business with us. Today, there are more than 100 employees working at Fayetteville Public Utilities. They know that our foundation is built on going the extra mile, on putting the needs of our customers first, and in doing what it takes to keep your rates affordable. We're proud to be a part of this community. We're honored to have spent the past 75 years providing you and your family with reliable, safe, and affordable electric service. It's become a tradition for us. So the next time you flip on a light switch, remember those words that will ever ring true. Let there be light.